Hey guys, how many of you have or know someone who has an intellectual disability? Crickets? A lot of people don't like admitting it or maybe even don't know about it. Let me be clear about what an intellectual disability is first. So, an intellectual disability means there's a substantial limitation in intellectual functioning and deficits in adaptive behavior. Okay? It means that a person is significantly limited in at least two of these areas: communication, self-care, home living, social skills, community use, self-direction, health and safety, functional academics, leisure, and work. Okay? So a sub-average intellectual functioning usually correlates with an IQ of 70 or less, barring superior adaptive functioning. So, clear as dirt, it's cognitive functioning plus adaptive functioning identified before adulthood. All right? So, intellectual disability is actually a lot more prevalent than you might think. Did you know that 3 in every 100 people can be identified like that? That means that if you know 30 people, chances are you know somebody who's affected by intellectual disability. And if you didn't know that, or when I asked that question, somebody didn't raise their hand and say something, it reflects 3 things about our society right now. It means we lack understanding and awareness. It means that people are ashamed to admit it. And it means that intellectual disability is highly stigmatized. Is that a new word for you? Stigmatized? All right, let's talk about what stigma is. A stigma is a sign of disgrace that sets people apart from other people. So it's not a good thing. It's not just an idea about how something is. It's a bad idea that makes people separate. The stigma that a lot of people associate with intellectual disabilities varies. Now, some cultures have different stigmas than others. Some things that I've heard of just recently are stigma associates people with curses, with disease, with sin. Sometimes they say they're not independent and maybe they're incompetent and helpless. And these are fictions that come about based on because stigma is based on a 3-part problem. Okay? So these 3 pieces are interconnected. First, there's ignorance. Ignorance about what intellectual disability is. And it feeds into discrimination, which is the behavior, and prejudice, which is the attitude. Okay? And each of these 3 things feed into each other to create stigma and attitudes toward learning intellectually disabled individuals. So what we need to talk about is how we can get rid of that stigma. Now, talking about it creates awareness and helps you understand that people are people, and they start that way, and having that understanding is integral to creating a battle against stigma. But my theory is that we need to start with those individuals that are being affected. And by doing so, we can raise awareness and reduce the negative stereotypes. We can increase social inclusion of these individuals. And with their assistance and their help, we can uphold more discrimination laws that are already in existence. So I've been doing some research, and there's a self-advocacy and empowerment program called STORM. STORM is something that teaches people to stand up for themselves. Okay? So it takes this idea of the stigma being an attack on their person. And when they're attacked, they can do two things. One of them is involuntary, and that is managing the stigma. And what you can do as an individual with an intellectual disability is build up walls to protect from those assaults. Okay, this is an involuntary thing, right? People start attacking you. You're going to build the walls and shield yourself from those attacks, right? That happens automatically. No matter who's being attacked, you're going to build up those walls. What this program helps you do, it gets you to the point where you can eventually resist the stigma. And what resisting means is bringing you from a passive management to an active resistant. That means instead of just building that wall, you can also then maybe lob some cannonballs over also, to give you a visualization of that. So the way that they do this is they start with cognitive behavioral therapy to help your reactions and help your self-thought and your actual behavior in situations. And then it brings you through narrative therapy. And narrative therapy helps you decide what story you want people to hear about your disability and about you. So you don't go around thinking, I'm stupid and I'm not good at that. No, you tell your story and you present yourself the way that you are. And that's an individual who may be an amazing actress, somebody who has rights, someone who can live independently. Whatever that story is, it teaches you through narrative therapy, to tell that story. And once you have that story, it brings you through what's called liberation psychology. With liberation psychology, it helps you initially acknowledge that there's an issue, okay? And the issue is that stigma. And once you acknowledge that there is an issue, it helps you with the steps it helps you decide what steps you want to take regarding that. It's not going to make you take these steps, but it helps you become stronger if you do want to take them. So the first step is to acknowledge that an intellectual disability is just one part of me. And you get out there and you tell people, I am a whole person, and that's just one part of me. And then the second part of what you start saying is, it's not okay for people to treat me like this. You don't have to handle it anymore like that. The third step is teaching you how to respond when things do happen, when people do treat you in ways that you should not have to be treated. It teaches you how to respond passively by building that wall and having that strong wall, and knowing that it's there really helps that wall be stronger. so that those ideas and those mean things that they're shooting at you, they don't get through. And then it helps teach you how to respond and how to resist these things and what things you might say back to them if you wanted to. Because primarily, this program wants you to know that you have the right to respond. I know that if we can help many people with intellectual disabilities learn how to stand up for themselves, that self-advocacy will feed into awareness, right? And this awareness will come directly from the source, and people will naturally slough off the stigma and the ideas, the prejudices that they may have had. The self-advocacy will directly reduce negative stereotypes. It will directly help people in that community help themselves be included in social situations. When people are able to advocate for themselves, they're more able to be included socially. And when they're advocating for others, those others will also be able to be more socially included. Through the advocacy, the self-advocacy program, it will gain followers and it will gain a voice, and the discrimination laws that currently exist will be better upheld, because when people see that something is being done wrong, they'll be more likely to speak up. Because while people are self-advocating, other people will be more aware that this is a real problem, that this is something that needs attention. And to bring that into a classroom perspective, if you have a child in your classroom that you're able to teach how to self-advocate and how you're able to guide them into being an inclusive part of your class, that will help expose your other students. Now, when your other students are exposed to this person who you're respecting and who you're showing this light to, they will adapt, and they will not grow up with the same types of ideas that others may have. So bring these ideas into the classroom. Help teach parents about the programs that are out there that can help their children learn to self-advocate. And if these parents are unable to do this, because there is a lot on the plates of parents of disabled children, take it a step further than you may otherwise and help teach that child through class discussions and through participation how to be involved socially and how to talk about themselves. Be the change, and it will happen.